Hey guys, Abel in Vegas here, and I am live today, right now, only because I want to record this and I didn't want to worry about editing. So hopefully, I don't mumble jumble too much because I'm still getting used to being live and having my thought process and doing live at the same time. But I wanted to come on to talk a little bit about a new YouTube rule that kind of kicked in. I believe it was yesterday or today, um, and some of those impacts that may have on our YouTube channels, especially as it relates to baseball cards, and then also maybe hit some points on the Houston Astros cheating scandal that has begun to pick up some steam over the last day or two. But first, let's talk about YouTube. I wish I could bring some people in to probably have a discussion about this, but I don't have that tool that somebody like Baseball Collector has, where he's been able to invite and get a couple people to have a discussion. But maybe he will actually touch on this topic maybe at some other time. But I will be looking at my phone and then have my laptop in the back, just because I wanted to look at some information. So basically, last September, the FTC fined YouTube $170 million as part of a settlement because YouTube was not in full compliance with COPA. So if you have not heard of COPA, COPA stands for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Now, this act has actually been enacted back in early 2000s. So it's actually been on for a while, but because of the way YouTube was structured, it turns out they were not complying with certain things. And certain things then from the settlement came out that have now gone into effect, the first part today, and then the second part to begin 2020. So basically what happened was, let's see here. Because YouTube is popular with kids, a lot of the content that you provide might be seen by kids, and online privacy kind of says that you cannot collect certain data from kids. So I'll probably read a couple of this stuff. That way, it kind of makes more sense. It says, how popular is YouTube? Now, this I'm reading an article that was posted directly on ftc.gov titled 170 million FTC New York YouTube settlement offers COPA compliance tips for platforms and providers. So it says, how popular is YouTube with children under 13? It says the answer YouTube gave depending on who was asking. When pitching its platform to companies selling kid-related products, YouTube described itself as today's leader in reaching children aged 6 through 11 against top TV channels and the number one source where children discovered new toys and games. So YouTube also touted that it was unanimously voted as the favorite website for kids 3 to 12, and that 93% of tweens visit YouTube to watch videos. So many parents wouldn't be surprised by that description. Now, when you ask an advertiser about YouTube, and specifically with COPA, a Google employee said, we don't have any users that are below 13 on YouTube, and platform site is general audience. So there is no channel content that is child directed and no COPA compliance is needed. That statement would likely raise parental eyebrows, and it gets to the heart of where the FTC and the New York Attorney General say YouTube violated COPA rules. It says individuals and businesses that upload videos to YouTube can create channels to display their content. Of course, companies want viewers to watch what they've uploaded, but YouTube offers another way for businesses to make money through their channels. By default, YouTube enables behavioral advertising, also known as targeted advertising, on monetized channels. That means YouTube collects information about viewers of content in the forms of persistent identifiers such as cookies that allow YouTube to track viewers over time and across websites, and uses that data to serve them tailored ads. The channel owner makes money from the advertiser, and so does YouTube. So just to give you a quick tip or some thoughts about cookies. So I work in marketing, and so we use this a lot for retargeting purpose and stuff. But it basically, cookies allow us to track you and what you visit. So when it comes to this specifically with YouTube, if you have a cookie on your computer that, because you're going constantly to look at the website for your elementary school, we could kind of tell that, hey, maybe somebody that uses this computer or watches this channel has something to do with elementary school. So that's how things like that works. Pretty awesome. Let's see here. YouTube used that money-making model across its platform that included channels geared to a general audience, but then also channels YouTube knew were geared toward kids under 13. So how did YouTube know? In some instances, channel owners told YouTube their content was directed to children. In other cases, YouTube's own rating system identified content as kid-directed. And yet, even with that knowledge, YouTube used persistent identifiers on channels directed to children. Identifiers that allowed YouTube to track kids online, deliver them targeted ads, and make millions in the process. So beginning in January of 2016, so basically, so for example, you could have something like, let's say Toys R Us had a specific toy that they had an ad on, and you knew that kids were watching this channel. The algorithm could say, hey, any kid that falls within this category, I want you to show them this ad for Toys R Us for this toy. So then every time that ad was viewed, Toys R Us was paying YouTube, $1 or 50 cents for every view. So then, Toys R Us got the views that they wanted, and hopefully then sold toys at their store because the kid wanted that toy. But then Google, YouTube was able to then also make tons of money because every single kid was watching this ad. So that's how the cookie, the knowing who your audience is, kind of works. So beginning in January of 2016, YouTube offered channel owners the option to disable behavioral advertising and instead use contextual ads, a less precise method of anticipating ads to which a viewer might respond. But YouTube cautioned channel owners that turning off behavioral ads may significantly reduce the channel's revenue. The unspoken concern was that it also would reduce how much money YouTube would make. So Congress enacted COPPA to make it clear that parents, not marketers, are in charge when it comes to whether companies can collect information from kids online. The FTC and the New York Attorney General alleged that YouTube's behind-the-scenes conduct violated 3 key COPPA provisions. So the first one was, under COPPA rule, a child-directed website or online service or a site that has actual knowledge it's collecting or maintaining personal information from a child must give clear notice on its site of what information is being collected from children, how it is using such information, and its disclosure practices for such information. 2, the site or service must give direct notice to parents of their practices with regard to the collection, use, or disclosure of personal information for their children. And 3, before collecting personal information from kids under 13, COPPA-covered companies must get verifiable parental consent. How do you do that with a YouTube when a kid could be watching, but it might be your account? Anyway, that's where this is very gray area. So it says, COPPA definition of personal information specifically includes persistent identifiers used for behavioral advertising. Importantly, third-party platforms are subject to COPPA when they have actual knowledge they're collecting personal information from users of a kid-directed site. Therefore, the complaint charges that YouTube knew certain channels on its platform were directed to children and yet tracked visitors to those sites without disclosing that practice and without getting parents' verifiable consent. It's very interesting. So in addition to the $170 million judgment, which goes to the U.S. Treasury and the state of New York, the proposed settlement requires YouTube and parent company Google to notify channel owners that their child-directed content may be subject to COPPA rule. So YouTube and Google also must implement and maintain a system that lets channel owners identify content as child-directed so YouTube can ensure it's complying with COPPA. So in addition, YouTube and Google must provide annual COPPA compliance training for employees who deal with channel owners. So basically, the settlement says that me, as a channel owner, I am now responsible for telling YouTube if my content is directed to kids. So this is where there's a gray area about this, specifically for those of us have channels when we deal with baseball cards. Now, I started reading more about this today because I got the email from YouTube yesterday in the afternoon. I was like, well, I've never thought of my content being done specifically for or towards kids. I've always thought, I'm opening a baseball card box, and it's cool to show everybody what I received, or I buy something in the mail, and I show it off. If I order a card that's $1,000 and I do a YouTube video about it, sometimes I've never thought about that is geared toward kids. I don't think of a kid having $1,000, but because my content can be accessed by kids, does that mean that I now have to follow these COPPA rules? I also started thinking about what about channels that have kids in them. One of the rules, and if you have a child in your videos, it has to fall under COPPA because you're using a child or child actors, as they call them. And I know we have several channels that, for example, like MP Fox, I'm not sure how young his son is, but, are you doing cards, and could it be possible that somebody under 13 years of age might be seeing your videos because they also like baseball cards? Our hobby, we always keep saying we wish there was more kids involved. I know Topps has been doing a lot to get kids involved in the hobby. So I believe at some point kids have to watch or may want to watch videos about baseball cards. So in that case, my video might have to be COPPA compliant. But this is where, and I'll get to another article in a minute, where some of the changes that we as creators have to make may affect our channel. So even when I went on to sign on YouTube Live now for the first time, I saw a little thing that says, is this kid related or is this not kid related? Because if you say that it is kid related, some of the changes is one, basically you're going to be limited. If you're monetized, you're only going to be limited to certain specific types of ads. So there's going to be a lot of ads that might not be seen, or you might not even get any ads on your channel because of these COPPA rules, since there's going to be no tracking allowed on your video. Two, if you say that this is a kid-friendly video, that means you're no longer going to be able to get comments on your videos. That's going to be disabled for that video. And while we post videos, there's a lot of times we're interested in the feedback that we provide in these videos. But if I have to now claim that it is a kid-friendly or kid content friendly because kids cannot comment without parental consent on videos, YouTube just has decided to blanket turn off all comments for all videos. If you decide that if your content on your videos is mostly all kids related content, I only do baseball cards. So, if all that has to now be classified under being kid friendly, that means that all videos going forward, comments will be disabled. People won't be able to add my videos to the watch later playlist. That's one of the things, the changes. I don't understand that one, but that's what it is. The bell notification will be turned off for any video that is kid friendly. So they can be notified when something gets popped up. So that's a lot of changes. So as I was reading today, there's a lot of people, YouTube creators, who are a little upset about that. So here's some of the, so So here's some of the questions. Is content creators need to be conversant with COPPA. So you need to know that if you upload child-directed content to platforms like YouTube for commercial purposes, the COPPA rule may apply if you allow the collection of personal information for viewers or content. It says actual knowledge that content is kid-directed kicks in COPPA obligations. If a platform hosting third-party content knows the content is directed to children, it's illegal to collect personal information from viewers without getting verifiable parental consent. So one of the things that has not been uploaded now, but will be uploaded starting in 2020, because YouTube is currently going to be working on the algorithm. And they said that that should be coming out in 2020. So basically what's going to happen is if I decide that my content, I go to no, it's not geared toward kids. And obviously every time you upload something, it goes through the YouTube algorithm. If they decide through that algorithm that your content is kid directed, then they will flag it on their side. And that you can't change that back. You can't appeal that. So then after that, so if you could go to your video one day, it could have comments. Then as soon as YouTube deems it as kid content, comments will be disabled. Then your account has been flagged. And the problem with that algorithm is that if you're not flagging stuff as kid content friendly, and YouTube's going to be doing that for you, then you run the risk of YouTube shutting you down because they're going to consider that you being purposefully avoiding the COPPA requirements. So this is very interesting stuff. It says, like real estate, a website can be mixed use. So it's fine for most commercial sites geared to a general audience to include a corner for kids. But if that part of your site collects information from users, you now have obligations under COPPA. So I'm going to get into another article. So I'm not sure why, but a lot of the major news outlets have not been covering this story. But there was an article written on The Verge that's titled YouTube's new kids content system has creators scrambling. So this says that on Tuesday, YouTube formally announced its plan to have creators label any videos of theirs that may appeal to children. Starting in January 2020, if creators mark a video as directed at kids, data collection will be blocked for all viewers, resulting in lower ad revenue. And those videos will lose some of the platform's most popular features, like I was mentioning earlier, comments. And this also affects end screens. So kind of like when, hey, Eric, yes, I haven't gone to the Astros yet. I'm still talking about the new YouTube rules that has been changing. But like there's a lot of YouTube channels that have end screens where you could direct people to other videos or to subscribe to your channel. If you have to label your video as kid friendly, you lose that. So it's a major change in how YouTube works and has left some creators clueless as to whether they're subject to these new rules. So obviously all this comes from the new $170 million settlement, which was the largest fine ever collected for a violation of COPPA. So in this case, the ruling means YouTube can employ its powerful ad targeting system on anyone who might be under the age of 13, which is a dire problem for a platform with so many users. Now I think I need some water. It says this new system is already sending creators reeling over what exactly is considered kids content and what could happen if they unintentionally mislabel videos. Some of YouTube's most popular categories fall into the gray areas for policy, including gaming videos, family vlogging, and toy reviews. Again, is baseball card considered a toy? I know for Target, they have them under toys and gaming. So I think this has the potential to affect many of us creators who create baseball card content, just hobby content. Something else to think about, it says creators are being held directly responsible by the FTC. It says if the FTC decides that you are not in compliance with COPPA as a creator, then they could fine you. And later in the article, it talks about how much that costs. It says it's especially scary because the verbiage of kid-directed versus kid-attractive isn't very clear, he continued. So it's hard to know if we're in violation or not. It says children advocacy groups like Common Sense feel that rules don't go far enough and that placing most of the burden on creators rather than YouTube itself won't do enough to protect kids online. However, the rules are entirely consistent with what YouTube is required to do under the settlement order. Again, depending what the people from Common Sense consider what YouTube should do, the only thing that the FTC cared about in this settlement was the collection of data. You know, how what video content you put to kids. That think that's a little bit different. I think it's more of the collection of data. And so if you're creating content where kids are susceptible to watching, you need to make sure that the data is not being collected, is what they're trying to get to. In theory, YouTube has always been subject to COPPA, but those restrictions have taken on new urgency in the wake of the recent settlement. Under the terms of the settlement, YouTube is required to develop, implement, and maintain a system for channel owners to designate whether the content on YouTube service is directed to children. Under the system that YouTube rolled out on Tuesday, creators who strictly make children's content can also have their entire channel designated as directed at children. So again, there's tons of channels on YouTube. There's people that specifically do toy reviews that are intended for children, or for example, somebody like Gary Vee, who created the Gary Vee cartoons for kids, that's created or directed at children. But again, I think the gray area for us when it comes to card collecting, how much is that adult stuff and how much is geared towards creating content that, because you want the younger kids, your younger generation to be involved in the hobby. It says once a label is viewed as kids content, all personalized ads will be shut off, replaced with contextualized advertising based on the video itself. So within YouTube, it's clear that the child-directed videos will have fewer advantages on the platform. The most obvious is the removal of targeted ads, but a number of other YouTube features are also impossible without personalized data. In particular, child-directed videos will no longer include a comment section. So this is where, for me, obviously that's where I'm upset about, because if the gray area is going to include baseball cards, not being able to then get feedback on your channels through comments, that's going to suck, I think. Click-through info cards will also no longer be included, end screens, notification functions, and the community tab, all powerful tools for driving viewers back to your channel. The consequences for not labeling a video as child-directed could be even more severe. So in its September order, the FTC made it clear that it could sue individual channel owners who abuse this new labeling system. Crucially, those lawsuits will fall entirely on channel owners rather than on YouTube itself, which makes sense because YouTube, through the settlement, it's saying, hey, we've put all the things in place for you to be compliant. The rest is up to you. In a video explaining the changes to creators, YouTube explicitly declined to tell channel owners when to label a video. It says, ultimately, we can't provide legal advice. We're unable to confirm whether or not your content is made for kids. That decision is up to you, taking into consideration these factors. YouTube goes on and say, if you want help determining these, then you need to talk to your lawyer. If the FTC does take action against channel owners, it's likely to be both selective and heavy-handed. The FTC is a small agency and doesn't employ nearly enough staffers to tackle every COPPA failure that gets uploaded to YouTube. With so much content uploaded to YouTube every day, the FTC is likely to focus on high-profile cases against popular channels. Under COPPA, the FTC is entitled to seek $42,000 for each mislabeled video. So that means that If you have all these videos and they're not properly labeled and it's deemed to be kid content or kid-friendly content, then the FTC can fine you up to $42,000 for each of those videos. In its video yesterday, YouTube also pledged to use machine learning and flagging algorithms to locate child-directed videos that may have been mislabeled. So this is where it comes in with their algorithm, where they could, if you think it's a no, but they run your video through the algorithm and they think it's a yes, it'll be changed. Creators won't be able to appeal these decisions, though. A YouTube spokesperson said the company will be listening to feedback. If the algorithms aren't effective, YouTube could stop using them entirely and face no threat from the FTC for doing so, because you as a creator will be solely accountable for labeling these. It would certainly be more helpful for protecting children and being something that the FTC could enforce and something that families could rely upon as trustworthy if YouTube was taking a bigger role in helping to identify content and was more transparent about the consequences and rules with creators. They did put a correction where it says creators won't actually be able to appeal YouTube's decision about whether their videos are directed at kids under their new policy, which will begin rolling out in 2020. So again, if you create content that you know is kid directed and you label it as such, then you're good to go. Yes, you probably, if you are monetized, for those channels that are monetized, you might see a difference in how much ad revenue you get because of that change, but at least you'll be compliant. The bigger question is going to be for those of us who create content that can possibly be in a gray area, because, like I said, if I'm making content that I feel is not necessarily geared towards kids, and maybe my mail day videos might be not, but you might have a kid who is possibly 10 years old and got a card of baseball cards and goes into YouTube and searches for tops, and your video comes up for for Topps Series 2 box break. That could be considered kid content. So is YouTube going to then either start flagging our channels as kid content so the change will happen? Or do we have to be proactive as users? Because based on what I was reading, if YouTube has to continually change your videos from no kid friendly to yes kid friendly, they might take it as you're not following the rules, and then they can then shut your channel down. So it's very, very interesting. So I really wanted to talk about this to make sure that hopefully you guys start reading about this to make sure that you're in compliance, so there's nothing happens. So if we do see videos out there that don't, like I have a couple videos I think where I've done Magic the Gathering, and I think I have a couple Fortnite box openings. So it's very possible that kids might be watching those videos. So I'm going to have to go through my YouTube video list and flag those just to make sure that I am now. Like I said, that means that those channels will no longer have comments. They won't have ads, but I'm not monetized because I only have a little over 250 subscribers. So I'm not to the 1,000 threshold yet to worry about being monetized. And so, all right. The other big topic that has been going around is the Houston Astros have been caught cheating. So basically, to keep this short, hopefully you've heard about it, is somehow the Astros installed a camera in center field where they zoomed in to the catcher to be able to get the signs, and somebody in the dugout somewhere installed the TV where, while the offense was at bat, somehow the Astros were either whistling or banging on trash cans whenever a fastball was coming, so you knew as long as it was in the right location, you could swing and help yourself out. If it was anything other than a fastball, then it would be quiet, so you knew you just had to hold back. Basically, is the gist of this story. They're saying that possibly AJ Hinch knew about it. I think Carlos Beltran, I want to say, and Alex Cora might have been known about this. And I believe this has been happening since around 2017. And right now there's an investigation going to actually determine the time frame of these occurrences. I know I saw a video in YouTube that was posted where somebody was able to go find one of the games where you can hear banging in the background of certain pitching situations. So definitely there's evidence out there. And I'm sure people have started now culminating through all the different games for the Astros to see when something out of the ordinary was occurring, to determine how often this cheating occurred. So some of the questions that I have heard through some of the videos and through the radio, because I listen to sports radio in the morning on my way to work, they were talking about how, obviously there's a sense of gamemanship about trying to steal the signs. And I think if you're on the field, so if I'm on offense and let's say I hit a double, so I'm at second base, or even if I was at first base, if there's anything that I can from that point find in the that the catcher is doing, whether they be tipping their pitches or whatever, but as just for my human person and what I could see, that's going to help my player at bat gain a small advantage. To me, that is okay because I feel that's part of the game. Just the same way, if you're on defense, you know that offensive player is trying to get an advantage. So you need to do what you need to do to prevent that from happening, whether it be changing your signs so often, because you know that if you're on offense, you're going to be doing the same thing. So to me, I'm okay with that. I am not okay with what the Astros have done if it is true that they put a camera to specifically steal these signs, because you purposely put it to cheat when it comes to that specific case, because you wanted to gain that advantage. So that is very upsetting that they do that. I do hope that they get one of the things. I see if I could talk about. Let's see. So I know for a long time, I used to play little league in baseball, and if I could figure out when you were possibly throwing me a fastball or whatever, like I would have wanted to know that. And if you could do that as a player while you're on the field during the game, I feel that that's great, or that's okay. That's National League. All right, so it doesn't look like the Houston Astros coach have won any of the Manager of the Year awards over the last few years. So in 2017, it was Paul Molitor for the Twins. In 2018, it was Bob Melvin. And in 2019, it was Rocco Baldelli. So that's okay there. Because I was thinking one of the punishments they could do if AJ Hinch, if they find him culpable of this, because that's what a lot of the people are talking about. What are some of the punishments that the Houston Astros should receive? And people on the radio were saying, they need to take away their championship and give it to the Dodgers, which that should not be done. But if Hinch is found culpable and he had won some sort of award, like manager of the year, like I would have, um, stripping him from that award would have probably been a step that they could have taken or they could take. But we have to wait and see. Right now, it's currently being investigated. Um, and so we'll see what happens over the next. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to do their investigation, but what are some of the things that could possibly happen or should happen to the Astros if they are found guilty? Um, a lot of people say, "Oh, they should not be allowed to sign free agents." I mean, I don't know how all that will work, but I think you could hit them hard, possibly with the first round picks. You could probably do 3 to 5 years worth of first round picks, depending on how abrasive these, this investigation, how much they actually did do. So I think definitely there. I know some people were talking, some radio station. I think the Yes Network did a video where they were saying that they should suspend Cora, Beltran, and Hinch for like a year if that is found to be, if they are found culpable. But then they were saying, well, basically you're making the Astros pay for something that they were not responsible for. Um, so we will see. I guess only time will tell. But it's very interesting that they will go through these lengths. A lot of people say that many other teams, they were saying that there's so many videos that are accessible close to the dugout, so many screens that are accessible close to the dugout, so it could happen. Some people were saying, I mean, you could put your YouTube allows you to stream games on your phone. So what if you had somebody at the stadium, but YouTube is on a tape delay? I know that for a fact because I do a lot of my video streaming for games through Hulu. So whenever there's a game on TV, usually I'm on a 30-second delay. So even if I was at the stadium and had my phone on there, because you are streaming online, there's a delay because it has to connect to a server and you have to then get that connection. So there's no way that people would be able to cheat that way through a connection. But if you're doing it live, I could see where that could be advantageous to the Astros. So hopefully they do take a look wherever that TV is. I'm sure there has to be a hole with wiring. I mean, there's so many things you could do to make sure that teams don't have access to television. I know I've seen games where players have access to their iPads because they do, like, obviously there's a lot of things that they have access to see either how they're pitching or how they're batting, but I'm sure that must just be instant replay. But I'm sure you could use those tablets to go back and look at the swing and look at the pitch sequence and see what kind of signs the catcher is throwing and what kind of pitches. So again, we have technology that allows our game and our players to have access to almost real-time information. But I think there should also be certain things that you should not purposefully set something up and then use it to be able to cheat or get an advantage that way. On the field, I'm okay with it. But off the field, the way, based on the description that I'm reading that has come out about how they were doing it, I absolutely agree that it should not be done. Especially because you're getting an advantage there and it's true. Some players that if they came up against the Astros and they had a bad outing and were being sent down, I mean that is putting them to a disadvantage. So, but if it's done during the game because your catcher, you gave up a double and your catcher can't hide the signs pretty well, you didn't change something. To me, I feel that could be fair game, but not the way the Astros have done it. So that is upsetting. So we'll see what happens. We'll wait and see what kind of judgment the commissioner of baseball does. If Hinch is responsible for some of it, I don't know if they actually will give him a 1-year suspension, but definitely 50 games, 60 games. Um, maybe some of the players too, if it's known that they were the ones who were participating, could get um, a certain number of games. It will be tough for the players who are currently with other teams, like if Cora, who's now with Boston, I think, or Beltran with the Mets. So that could get kind of tricky because you're almost penalizing the Mets for something that they did not do. But so it'd be very interesting. So that is what I have for this video. Hopefully you find that useful, especially the YouTube stuff, the YouTube changes. Hopefully, like I said, I like seeing the comments. So if stuff like that's going to change our videos, I think that could be kind of like a negative impact of these type of rulings. And then we'll just have to figure out a different way to get feedback on our content. But again, right now, the monetary aspect of ads, I'm 50-50 on that. Like, don't know exactly what to say because I'm not affected by it. But definitely working in marketing, I understand how that kind of works because we use it as well in the ads that we have to place and how we want to target people. And it's pretty awesome, the stuff you could do thanks to technology. So pretty cool. All right, guys, I will leave it there. Hopefully some of you guys will come back and watch this, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.